All right, let's get into one of the most famous and frankly most twisted true crime stories in American history. We're talking about a city completely held hostage by fear, a string of absolutely brutal murders, and then a confession. A confession that seemed to wrap it all up in a neat little bow. But what if that confession wasn't the end of the story? What if it was just the beginning of a much deeper, much darker mystery?
Just imagine opening your morning paper and seeing this headline. This is what greeted the people of Boston in the summer of 1962. The media jumped on it, coining names like the Mad Strangler and the Phantom Fiend. And these weren't just catchy names. They were like pouring gasoline on a fire, amplifying the panic that was already gripping the entire city.
So, what did this reign of terror actually look like on the ground? Well, the story unfolds over two absolutely terrifying years.
Between June of '62 and January of '64, the attacks just kept coming. And look at this timeline. It wasn't predictable. Sometimes months would go by with nothing, lulling everyone into a false sense of security, and then bam, the killer would strike multiple times in a single month. The city was on lockdown. People were buying new locks, getting guard dogs. Some were so terrified they literally packed up and moved away.
In the final toll, it was staggering. 13 women murdered in less than 2 years. And here's the thing that just completely baffled police. The victims. They were all over the map, ranging in age from 19 all the way up to 85. There was no clear type, no obvious pattern. It just felt random, and that made it even scarier.
And it's so important we see their names. These weren't just statistics. They were women with lives, with families. The press started calling these the silk stocking murders because of the killer's horrible signature of using the victim's own stockings. The public was desperate, the police were desperate, and everyone was working under one assumption. A single, monstrous killer was responsible for all of it.
With the investigation completely stalled and the city at its breaking point, the case took a sudden, dramatic turn that, honestly, no one saw coming. And this is the man at the center of it, Albert DeSalvo. Now here's the thing. He wasn't even a suspect in the stranglings. Not even on the radar. He was in custody for a totally separate series of crimes where he was known as the Green Man. But while he was in jail, he casually told a fellow inmate, "Hey, you know that Boston Strangler everyone's looking for? That's me." And his confession wasn't just, "I did it." Oh no, it was shockingly convincing. He knew things that only the killer could possibly know. Tiny details about the crime scenes that police had intentionally kept out of the newspapers. And get this, in one incredible moment, his own lawyer said DeSalvo corrected a witness about the color of a chair in her apartment. The witness was wrong, and DeSalvo was right. Photographic evidence later proved it. How could he know that?
So this is the giant contradiction at the heart of the case. On one hand, you've got this impossibly detailed confession, full of facts that shouldn't be public knowledge. And on the other hand, absolutely zero physical evidence. Nothing. No fingerprints, no hair, no fibers, not a single thing tying DeSalvo to any of the 13 crime scenes.
And that complete lack of forensic evidence, it was a massive red flag. As investigators and experts started to dig a little deeper, the seemingly perfect case against DeSalvo, well, it began to show some really serious cracks.
You see, this forced investigators to go back and look at the actual crimes themselves, and they found more problems. See, serial killers are usually defined by their patterns, a specific victim type, a signature method, but the Boston Stranglers' crimes, the victims, the methods, they were just all over the place. They really didn't fit the profile of a single killer at all. And hey, it wasn't just the local cops having doubts. We're talking about the top minds at the FBI, guys like the legendary profiler Robert Ressler. He looked at the case files and basically said, no way. From a behavioral standpoint, it was pretty much inconceivable that one person could be responsible for such different crimes. This led to a bombshell theory from, of all people, Dr. Ames Roby, the medical director of the very hospital where DeSalvo was being held. He argued that DeSalvo wasn't the strangler at all. He believed DeSalvo was what's known as a compulsive confessor, a deeply disturbed person who craved the fame and notoriety so much he'd claim responsibility for anything.
So, for almost half a century, that's where the case stood. A perfect confession on one side and profound expert doubt on the other. DeSalvo himself was killed in prison in 1973, and it really looked like the truth would be buried with him. Until modern science delivered a game-changing twist nobody saw coming.
Okay, so in 2013, investigators took another look at evidence from the very last murder, the case of 19-year-old Mary Sullivan. They managed to extract a DNA sample and compared it to the Y-DNA of DeSalvo's nephew. Now, Y-DNA is passed down through the male family line, so it's a great way to establish a link. And sure enough, it showed a connection. But to be 100% certain, they got a court order, they exhumed Albert DeSalvo's body, and they tested his DNA directly.
The results were conclusive. It was a near-certain match. After 50 years of debate, of speculation, of theories, science had finally, definitively, placed Albert DeSalvo at one of the crime scenes. He really was a killer.
So, that's it, right? Case closed, mystery solved. Well, not exactly. This incredible scientific breakthrough didn't actually end the mystery. In fact, it just made it sharper, boiling everything down to one final haunting question.
And this is the core of it, the question that still hangs over this case. Science proved, without a doubt, that DeSalvo killed Mary Sullivan, victim number 13. But it proved absolutely nothing about the other 12 murders. So was DeSalvo just a compulsive confessor who also happened to be guilty of one murder? Or was the multiple killer theory right all along? The Boston Strangler case is just this chilling reminder that sometimes even a perfect confession and a DNA match isn't the final word.